Part 5. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 41. Luzioki held the evaluation sheet. Her face couldn't tell whether she was happy or disappointed. The previous feeling that one punch could open the sky was indeed my illusion. In fact, my true strength has not even reached the late stage of starlight. But compared with before, it has increased several times. Luzioki's comprehensive attributes at the beginning were not even up to the limit values of ordinary people, far behind. Now he has jumped into the middle stage of starlight. It is not an exaggeration to say that he has reached the sky in one step. Huh? Luzioki. Are you also coming to the Adventurers Guild to register? Luzioki was stunned and turned around to see Zhao Peng, who was greeting him enthusiastically, and Li Bin, who was following him. After the adventurer assessment and team formation, it became clear that the two classmates who both belonged to the mage category had a growing relationship, and they met to register for the Adventurer Guild. Oh! What a coincidence, Luzioki waved his hand casually. There was only such an adventurers' union in the entire Zikan district. It was not surprising to meet students who had passed the assessment and came to register. Luzioki, have you finished the assessment? Let me see. Li Bin had sharp eyes and saw the 4 characters' strength evaluation at a glance. He walked to Luzioki in 3 steps and 2 steps, and looked at Luzioki's evaluation sheet. Then his eyes widened. Middle starlight. How is that possible? You know, in schools, although the equipment is much rudimentary, the measured values are quite accurate. Li Bin clearly remembered that Luzioki's previous record at school was still at overall physical fitness, 83, the school's equipment cannot display more detailed information. Maximum physical strength, 800. Spirit limit, 200. Such a value. How come it was only half a month before he took off right where he was? Even if everyone inexplicably passed the dungeon baptism together, it wouldn't be so different, right? When Luzioki cleared the difficult level dungeon, they were still sleeping soundly in the car. These classmates were all achieved by Luzioki alone, and they followed him to heaven. But no one knows the specific circumstances unless the parties concerned tell them. They just made a simple inference based on Xiao Yan's few words and the changes in themselves. There is a big boss who leads them to win. That's also a lie. Why can you, Luzioki, win so thoroughly? Not to mention that my physical strength has increased nearly 5 times, and my energy is even more exaggerated. Start directly 10 times. Is this reasonable? Is this fair? Of course it is fair and reasonable. Luzioki's spirit did not immediately soar to over 2,000. In fact, his spirit after baptism may only be in his early 1000s. After returning home, he directly took out the reward he had redeemed for being ranked first in the provincial rankings in the evening, and he was extravagant. In just 4 hours of meditation, his mental limit has doubled. Of course, this cannot all be attributed to the practice tools that assist meditation. The main reason is that Luzioki's hard work over the past few years has finally paid off. In addition, the strength of his soul is already much higher than that of ordinary people, and after being baptized by the copy, he has made an even greater leap. Mapping to mental strength, it is also greatly improved. More importantly, the boulder from the limits of human beings that hindered his improvement disappeared. The rising trend of spiritual cultivation is naturally unstoppable. However, after this training, his previously developed potential has been exhausted. If you want to raise your spirit so quickly again, it will probably be too much. Although Zhao Peng was also shocked when he saw this evaluation form, his emotional intelligence was much higher than that of Li Bin. He turned around and realized it. Seeing that Li Bin still had an expression of disbelief, he quickly stepped forward and patted him, making a gesture. Wink. This is Luzioki's secret. What are you doing here? Let's go, let's register, Zhao Peng pulled the distracted Li Bin and followed another young lady to the registration office. Before leaving, he said to Lu Zhaoqi with some respect. "We're going to register. Goodbye, Mr. Lu." "Okay, bye." Seeing the two people's completely different attitudes from before and their retreating figures, Lu Zhaoqi shrugged, feeling relieved. He looked back at the young lady beside him. "What else needs to be done now?" "No need, Mr. Lu, your information has been updated. This is your adventurer certificate. Please keep it." The young lady handed Lu Zhaoqi a magnetic card with Lu Zhaoqi's handsome profile picture and adventurer number on it. "Okay, thank you." Lu Zhaoqi put the card away. This card is the proof of Lu Zhaoqi's identity as an adventurer, and will also be linked to his account. In the future, all the profits he earns from the Adventurers Guild will be transferred to his personal account through this card. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" The young lady smiled, making people feel like spring breeze. "I also need to sell some materials." "Okay, please come over here." The claws of the cat demon, the hand bones of the goblin, the horns of the tauren, the fragments of the steel behemoth, the feathers of flames, the fragments of skeleton blades, the bone crystals, the lich soul. Lu Zhaoqi dug out the items in a hurry. The staff at the purchasing office were sweating profusely as they sorted the materials into categories, appraised the quality, and finally quoted the price. Lu Zhaoqi's skills can be said to be unparalleled. For mobs, it's a matter of seconds. Although the drops from a single monster are very rare, the quantity is huge. In total, there are more than 100 materials, which is equivalent to the accumulation of several copies by other adventurers. The staff member's calculator clicked loudly, and it took a while before he gave Lu Zhaoqi feedback. "Dear adventurer, the details of the materials you sell are here. Please check whether there are any discrepancies." The type, quantity, and unit price of the materials Lu Zhaoqi took out were clearly displayed on the display screen. Lu Zhaoqi took a quick glance and found nothing wrong, then looked at the total amount. 169,371 yuan. Nearly 170,000 yuan. Lu Zhaoqi took a breath of air. "This harvest is equivalent to my sister working around the clock for 2 years without eating or drinking. This is just pure material income, not counting his gains from equipment and props. Adventurer is indeed the most profitable profession, bar none." After thinking about it, Lu Zhaoqi took out the staff that dropped when the adventurer took the exam and the cloak that dropped when he killed the Lich King. "Will you accept the equipment?" Snow Queen's support wand. Attributes abbreviated. The Lich King's grudge cloak. Basic defense increased by 371. Skill damage taken reduced by 160. Deduct 50 points of your own spirit every second to form Magic Blessing, which increases the power of your dark skills by 20% and reduces the CD by 5%. This cloak can be said to be powerful. It's just that Lu Zhaoqi really doesn't have any use for it. "I had no choice but to bear the pain and donate it to those in need in exchange for the meager amount of money to make up for my regrets. Hello, we are here to purchase equipment. But for such high-quality equipment as the one you gave me, I personally suggest that it would be more cost-effective to entrust it to an auction house for sale." After the staff looked at it briefly, they told Lu Zhaoqi with a smile. "Is that so?" Lu Zhaoqi muttered, and then asked, "Where is the auction house?" Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 42. Naturally, the auction house will not be with the Adventurers Guild. In fact, Longwo's auction house is an institution supported by relevant departments, and what stands out is that it is impartial, fair and open. It's just that the things that can go to the auction house are all treasure level, and the people who go to the auction house are naturally either rich or expensive. Lu Zhaoqi, who used to struggle on the poverty line, naturally had no chance to be exposed to these. After getting out of the taxi, Luzioki took a look at the luxurious building. The exterior is carved with dragons and phoenixes, and the glaze is overflowing with color. The interior is magnificent and luxurious. There is a plaque hanging at the door, Rongcheng Auction House. It proved that Luzioki came to the right place. This was the first time for Luzioki to visit such a magnificent place, so he was a little afraid to set foot. But then he thought about it. Why are you panicking? I am now someone who can afford a taxi. Besides, I spent dozens of yuan to come here from Zikan. Wouldn't it be a waste not to go in and see it? So he pushed the door open and walked in. Welcome, the welcoming lady in Cheongsam bowed slightly to show respect. As a gentleman, Luzioki certainly did not take the opportunity to secretly glance at the snow-white chest muscles exposed by her collar. Well, he saw it openly. Luzioki suddenly had the urge to turn around and go out. Of course he didn't want to leave because of fear or anything else. I just want to hear these lovely ladies welcome him sweetly again. But in the end, he still didn't have the nerve to do something so tasteless. He walked to the reception desk and asked the staff, "What do I need to do if I want to sell items?" "Hello sir, do you want to sell ordinary items or replica props?" "If it is an ordinary item, you need to provide relevant item identification qualifications." The guy in a suit and leather shoes introduced Luzioki professionally in fluent Mandarin. "What I sell are replica props." "Okay, then please show your adventurer certificate and we'll help you register." Luzioki gave him the card and watched him start to operate it skillfully. After a while, he respectfully handed the card to Luzioki with both hands. "Hello, Mr. Lu, the registration has been completed. Please take the elevator on the right to the third floor, number 302 appraisal room, where professional appraisers are already waiting. At your service." Arriving at the 302 appraisal room, Luzioki was amazed at the scale of the auction house. Luzioki's physique has far exceeded that of ordinary people, and her eyesight has greatly improved. She glanced over and found that the room in the corner was 398. In other words, there are at least 98 appraisal rooms in this circular space. Opening the door, there is a partition in the luxurious large room. Through the partition glass window, you can see the appraiser sitting inside. He was a polite man with a mustache. When he saw someone coming in, he stood up and greeted Luzioki through the glass. "Hello, Mr. Lu. I am your exclusive appraiser, job number 0971, I am very happy to at your service. I'm afraid I learned this set of words from telemarketing." Luzioki complained inwardly, but nodded calmly on the surface. "Let's get started. Mr. Lu, please show me the props you need to consign. I will give you a valuation based on the current auction prices." Luzioki followed the instructions and took out the equipment and showed its attributes. After the appraiser checked it, he immediately started typing on the computer. "Sir, based on the staff you showed, the purchase price we gave is 3 million, and your cloak is 5 million. 2 pieces of equipment, 8 million. Luzioki's legs shook. Even in 2 lifetimes, he has never had so much money. Seeing Luzioki's silence for a long time, the appraiser thought he was dissatisfied with the price, and immediately said, "Sir, the properties of these 2 pieces of equipment are limited. You must have frost or darkness skills to enjoy them. All plus. The price of this type of attribute is relatively low among all categories, and the basic attributes of your staff are low and are only suitable for use by star-level adventurers. If you are not satisfied with the purchase price, you can also choose to sell on consignment." Luzioki came to her senses. "Consignment? Is this different from selling?" "That's right, sir," the appraiser explained. "If you want to sell it, you will sell the props directly to our auction house, and then the auction house will sell them to the outside world. If you encounter some situations, for example, the price of such props suddenly drops significantly, or the price given is too high and cannot be sold. If you are selling, you don't have to worry about it anymore. This means that if the price of props increases, the money I make will have nothing to do with me. Luzioki curled her lips and talked about the advantages without talking about the disadvantages. She was acting like a hooligan. For consignment, you give the reserve price yourself, and the auction house announces the auction. The auction house will charge a 5% service fee for the sale proceeds. Of course, a certain storage fee will also be charged when consigning. If the reserve price you give is inconsistent with the market, you will be responsible for any losses or missed auctions. The appraiser paused and continued. The sales price is generally slightly lower than the market price. This is normal, because all subsequent risks are borne by our auction house. Luzioki waved her hand. Okay, I understand, just sell it. He had no intention of fussing over this. After all, this is just his income from one copy plus the adventurer assessment. Instead of worrying about how to maximize your profits, it is better to spend time improving yourself, clearing more copies, and obtaining more and better props. Okay. Please sign here. The appraiser handed over 2 copies of the contract through the opening below the glass window. The general meaning of the above is that Luzioki sold these 2 pieces of equipment to the auction house for 8 million, blah blah. After Luzioki confirmed that it was correct, he signed his name with a stroke of his pen. He muttered in his heart, now, he is also a man worth 8 million. After signing, a tray rose up next to the table, and Luzioki placed the equipment on it as required. As the equipment moved away in a burst of light, Luzioki's broken cell phone in her trouser pocket vibrated slightly. He took it out and saw a text message on it, reminding him that the Chengdu auction company had transferred 8 million yuan to him. With money in his pocket, Luzioki was instantly filled with enthusiasm, and a desire to consume was brewing in his heart. So he turned around and asked the appraiser, "Where can I go to buy things from you?" The appraiser smiled and said, "The auction is held regularly every month, and the most recent one is on the 8th of next month. If you just want to buy some regular props for adventurers, you can go to the exchange on the 5th floor." Luzioki thought about it, nodded and left. He decided to go to the 5th floor to have a look. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 43. The moment Luzioki stepped out of the elevator and reached the 5th floor, he almost thought he had gone to the wrong place. Elegant and melodious music reached his ears. People in 2s and 3s took their seats at the small round tables. On the bar in the middle, the waiters skillfully mixed cocktails. At that moment, Luzioki thought she was in a high-end bar. A young lady wearing a small suit came up to her. "Sir, what services do you need?" Luzioki hesitated and said, "Buy something." The young lady smiled slightly, knowing that it was Luzioki's first time here, so she gestured, "Please come this way." She brought Luzioki to an empty round table and clicked the button on the round table. Something similar to a tablet rose up from the round table. You can view the props you need here and purchase and pay for them with your adventurer voucher. Besides, the drinks here are free. Only then did Luzioki realize that she had indeed gone to the right place, and was amazed by the environment here. He originally thought it would be like a market, with things laid out in categories for people to choose from. But I didn't expect it to be more similar to online shopping, except that it can only be done in this place. Luzioki thanked the young lady, sat on the sofa and began to study the screen in front of her. Clicking in will bring you to the purchase interface. 4 major modules are displayed on the interface: consignment area, sales area, order area, and designated trading area. Point your finger at the question mark above, and relevant instructions will appear. Luzioki looked at it carefully. The difference between consignment and sale has been discussed before, so I won't repeat it here. It's just that I was a seller before, but now I'm a buyer. The order area is for a large number of purchases of a specific prop, which can be traded in this area. Designating a trading area means specifying the transaction object, negotiating the transaction conditions with others in advance, and under the witness of the auction house, the transaction will be automatically completed after the conditions are met. Luzioki clicked into the sales area. All props that can be purchased are divided into 4 categories: skills, equipment, materials, and supplies. Skills are divided into 5 levels A, B, C, D, E. Luzioki was a little curious as to why there were no S-level skills. After thinking about it later, she was right. S-level skills are so rare that it would be strange to see them on common exchanges. In addition to grades, there are also categories. According to the purpose, they are divided into fighting skills, special skills, auxiliary skills, exploration skills, and recovery skills. Click on the equipment. I found that the lowest quality equipment there was, while the best ones were only rare. Depending on the attributes of the equipment, prices vary widely. The sophisticated equipment with the best attributes is even more expensive than some rare equipment with poor attributes. Luzioki didn't find any sets for sale. Either it didn't sell, or it was bought as soon as it appeared. Equipment is also divided into categories. Weapons are divided into melee and long range, and defense is divided into light armor, leather armor, cloth armor, and heavy armor. There are also other types of jewelry, such as rings, earrings, jade pendants, necklaces. Of course, the quantity of equipment in these parts is pitifully small, and the prices are extremely outrageous. The material aspect was directly skipped by Luzioki. In his current condition, there is no material needed anywhere. The final supplies are a big category. There are many and complicated things inside, and there are even categories that cannot be divided into specific uses. Luzioki took a rough look and found that there were 5 categories: cultivation, supplies, enchantments, scrolls, and others. Cultivation is some common cultivation supplies. Supplies include those that restore physical strength and spirit, those that restore injuries, those that fill the stomach, and those with special functions, such as invisibility potions, acceleration potions, strength potions, eagle eye potions, etc. Enchantments are props that add special effects to equipment, such as holy water with sacred attributes, evil eye with dark attributes, phoenix feathers with fire attributes. Scrolls are more interesting. A blank scroll will have different effects according to the rules entered on it. This is what Luzioki learned when she was in school. The team contract is generated after the rules are entered on the scroll. Common scrolls include contract type, skill type, referring to entering skills into the scroll in advance and releasing them directly when used, storage type, using scrolls to store supplies, even if they are not dungeon props and have no entries, and summon teleportation. Class, simple understanding, return scroll, 4 types. But this thing can only be played by rich people. Even Luzioki, who is worth 8 million, can only drool while looking at it. Others refer to some props that are difficult to classify, which will be discussed in detail later. Luzioki, who was walking out of the auction house, looked back at the splendid tall buildings behind her, her expression a little desolate. Before setting off, Luzioki had hundreds of thousands in his pocket, and he was very high-spirited. After coming out, Luzioki only had a dozen yuan in her pocket, which was barely enough to take the subway. 8.16 million. Luzioki's flowers are so clean. Note, readers who are confused about this, please be patient and listen to the author's quibbles at the end of the chapter. In addition to some conventional training items, such as body training auxiliary supplies, body tempering pills, thunder pills to assist in training reaction speed, muscle strengthening and bone building ointments to assist in strength training. Luzioki also bought a large amount of refined grain pills, which are a kind of food that can supplement energy and slow down hunger. They are only about the size of a pea, but they provide hundreds of times more energy than so-called compressed biscuits. Delicious, very hungry. It just has no taste. And the price is a bit expensive. Then there's the plethora of recovery supplies. Intermediate physical recovery potion. Recover 2,400 points of physical strength within 60 seconds after use. Intermediate mental recovery potion. Restore 2,400 points of spirit within 60 seconds after use. Intermediate healing potion. After use, you can recover wounds below the level of serious injury within 60 seconds and replenish 5,000 points of vitality and blood. There are 99 pieces in a set, and Luzioki bought 5 sets each. Finally, he accidentally discovered a skill. Strengthening practice rating, E. After possessing this skill, the training effect is increased by 10%, passive ability. Although it is only an E-rated skill, it has no attack power, and its effect is very mediocre. It only improves the training effect by 10%. Of course, the training effect here should include both physical and mental aspects. Many training tools far exceed it. It will also occupy a skill bar. But Luzioki bought it without hesitation. Because it is the first passive skill that Luzioki discovered. What's the meaning? Passive skills mean that you don't have to actively release them, and the effect always exists. That means it. No consumption. The reason why Luzioki's main skills are still at C rating is because he is afraid that after using his natural ability to infinitely upgrade the skills will consume too much and he will not be able to release them. But passive skills don't have this worry. He plans to fill it up when he gets back. He wanted to see where the limit of this infinite upgrade was. P.S. The following content has nothing to do with the main text. Answers to questions about why the protagonist spends all his money here. Analysis from the protagonist's perspective. 1. Can the 8 million left here cure my sister's illness? Obviously not. If you simply use money to improve your life, it is undoubtedly drinking poison to quench your thirst and committing suicide slowly. Luzioki chose to use the money to improve himself, because he believed that as long as his strength improved, he could easily earn more money than this. Second, why don't you confess to your sister? In fact, I have mentioned this question many times, because my sister's body cannot tolerate drastic changes in emotions, and she is prone to accidents when she is excited. This disease is very common. Some elderly people can see well at ordinary times, but immediately become unwell when they are stimulated. In order to prevent her sister from being irritated, Luzioki could only hide it from her sister first, and then confess to her when she was sure to cure her sister. Therefore, Luzioki spent the money on the premise that he could not confess to her sister. On the premise. Third, why does the protagonist use all the money? In addition to the above two problems, there is another reason. Luzioki is on top. The money was too easy to come by, and things that were too easy to obtain would not be cherished. In addition, the auction house had a dazzling array of things, and he was suddenly spoiled for choice, just like visiting e-commerce on Double 11, and then eating rubbish at the end of the month. This situation is similar, and the money was spent unknowingly. Analysis from the author's perspective. First, this design is to reflect the gap between ordinary people and adventurers. In the eyes of ordinary people, 8 million may be a goal that cannot be achieved in a lifetime, but for adventurers, 8 million is just to buy some necessities such as firewood, rice, oil, and salt, and they will be spent cleanly. Second, portray the image of the protagonist. No one is perfect, and the protagonist in the author's works is naturally not a so-called great sage. He has his own preferences, sometimes he is over the top, ordinary people, sometimes he is witty, and he also makes mistakes. In terms of his general personality, he is optimistic, positive and kind-hearted, and he treats friends and relatives with sincerity. However, he also has his own shortcomings in the small direction. Sometimes he is a bit short-sighted and greedy. Even being moved by beauty, this is the image of a complete person. Third, the author does have some ill-considered aspects. On the whole, Xiaopoja has thought a lot, but there are indeed some details that are not well drawn or rigorous. Many book friends have given good suggestions, and I have also responded positively to them in the paragraph reviews, mainly because many readers do not read them. Paragraph review, so I put it in the text, this book has been written for more than a month. In fact, many parts have been revised based on the reader's suggestions. If you have any suggestions, it will be better than the author's handling. It will not affect it. Under the premise of the subsequent plot, the author is very willing to adopt it. Of course, if you criticize the author and criticize the protagonist right from the beginning, the filthy language is unsightly, so please don't blame the author for deleting it after seeing it. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 44. Lu Wanyi felt that Lu Zioqi was a little absent-minded today. When I talk to him, I can always feel his careless and perfunctory tone. She pouted, wanting to be angry, but as soon as she thought about it, her anger disappeared. She went out to buy groceries today and heard many people talking about the adventurer assessment. It must be that this year's adventurer assessment has been completed, and those parents who are beaming with joy have naturally become the envy of everyone. Lu Zioqi must have already known about this matter. Maybe he was feeling uncomfortable at the moment. After all, he was the one who forced him to stop thinking about becoming an adventurer. Thinking of this, Lu Wanyi felt a little guilty, and looked at Lu Zioqi with an especially gentle look. She served Lu Zioqi several dishes in a row. "Xiaoqi, eat more. The cabbage fried today is particularly delicious. This green pepper shredded pork is not bad either. Xiaoqi, eat it quickly." Lu Zioqi looked at the pile of food in the bowl, and a question mark popped up in her head. Today, what happened to my sister? We don't dare to say it, and we don't dare to ask it either. Lu Zioqi, who had a ghost in her heart, could only eat silently, stuffing food into her mouth with big mouthfuls. While her sister was humming a song and washing dishes in the kitchen, Lu Zioqi frowned and looked at the sandbags and wooden stakes that had been with her for many years. He played with weights for 3 full hours today without even shedding a drop of sweat. Relying on these equipment alone can no longer satisfy his daily practice after baptism. In other words, he can no longer practice at home, otherwise he will directly expose his identity as an adventurer. Lu Zioqi thought for a while and found that there seemed to be many training grounds opened around the school, which should be able to temporarily meet his needs. It's just a bit of a headache in terms of cost. He began to lament that his more than 8 million flowers were spent too quickly. It feels like I didn't buy anything, why is it gone? Back in the house, Lu Zioqi learned the new skill first and upgraded it to 9 stars. Strengthening training, rating, E. Level, upward arrow. 9 stars. After possessing this skill, the training effect is increased by 55%, passive ability. Characteristics, steel and iron bones, immortal will, God rewards those who work hard. Consumption. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Iron bone, your physical strength and defense increase by 30%. Immortal will, your spirit and resistance to abnormal conditions are increased by 30%. God rewards those who work hard, your training speed is increased by an additional 50%, and is suitable for skill training. Lu Zioqi raised his eyebrows. Even with the E skill, there was obviously a qualitative leap after reaching the full level. The first 2 features are pretty impressive, but the last one is a bit awkward. It just increases the speed of cultivation. Furthermore, skill cultivation. Luzioki seems to have no use at all. Because it takes effect directly and passively, Luzioki's feeling is not very intuitive. There is no way to test it in detail now, so Luzioki skips this link and starts to upgrade. Strengthening cultivation rating, A rightward arrow cultivation cheats rating, D. Cultivation secrets, rating, D rightward arrow cultivation secrets, rating, C. The secret of cultivation, rating, C rightward arrow true the secret of cultivation, rating, B. When Luzioki stopped from the crazy point along the way, he couldn't help but froze. The original E-rated skills have undergone earth-shaking changes. Ancient Wizards, rated SS. Level, upward arrow. 9 stars. After possessing this skill, all training effects are increased by 5000%, the chance of being interfered is reduced by 50%, the probability of entering enlightenment is increased by 50%, the gains from enlightenment are increased by 50%, passive ability. Characteristics, Steel and Iron Bones, Immortal Will, God rewards those who work hard. Consumption. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Iron Bone, your physical strength and defense increase by 500%. Immortal Will, your spirit and resistance to abnormal conditions are increased by 500%. God rewards those who work hard, your training speed is increased by an additional 1000%, and is applicable to skill training. He knew for the first time that there were SS skills on top of S-level skills. This is the first time I have seen one that can increase the resistance to abnormal status to over 100%. When the abnormal resistance is increased to 100%, it is basically equivalent to being immune to abnormal conditions. Unless the opponent has an item that ignores resistance, no matter how powerful the abnormal status is, there is nothing you can do about it. The most important thing is that behind the SS-rated skills, there is actually an arrow symbol indicating that it can be improved. Luzioki's hands shook in excitement, and she clicked on the skill panel again. So the skill becomes Son of Heaven, rating SSS. Level, upward arrow. 0 stars. After possessing this skill, all training effects are increased by 10,000%, the chance of being interfered is reduced by 80%, the probability of entering enlightenment is increased by 80%, the gains from enlightenment are increased by 80%, the power of all skills is increased by 50%, passive ability. Characteristics, Steel and Iron Bones, Immortal Will, God rewards those who work hard. Consumption. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Iron Bone, your physical strength and defense increase by 800%. Immortal Will, your spirit and resistance to abnormal conditions are increased by 800%. God rewards those who work hard, your training speed is increased by an additional 2000%, and is applicable to skill training. The skill interface has completely changed. Every word shines with bright golden light. SSS rating skills. I guess after all these years, scorpions have been shitting all over the world, the only one. Luzioki's mind was in chaos now. He organized his thoughts. It turns out that in addition to the well-known SAB skills, there are also double S and triple S above the S rating. Even after reaching SSS, the nature of skills will undergo earth-shaking changes. For example, before SSS, although the skill attributes were outrageous, they were all extended and expanded based on the original strengthening training. But at the SSS level, a new entry has been added to the heaven-defying level, the power of all skills is increased by 50%. What is this concept? In other words, this entry alone, rounded up, is equivalent to a person with all dark attributes wearing 2 Grudge of the Lich King. And this is still a 0-star attribute. What if it is upgraded to 9 stars? Luzioki tried it, and then he was confused again. Son of Heaven, rating SSS. Level, upward arrow. 9 stars. After possessing this skill, all training effects are increased by 15,000%, the chance of being interfered is reduced by 100%, the probability of entering enlightenment is increased by 100%, the gains from enlightenment are increased by 100%, the power of all skills is increased by 100%, passive ability. Characteristics: steel and iron bones, immortal will, God rewards those who work hard. Consumption. Cooldown dash. Features detailed explanation. Iron bone, your physical strength and defense are increased by 1000%. Immortal will, your spirit and resistance to abnormal conditions are increased by 1000%. God rewards those who work hard, your training speed is increased by an additional 5000%, and is applicable to skill training. Luzioki's forehead began to twitch. As a BT, he felt like BT when he saw such a skill panel. The most important thing is, can it be upgraded? There are really unlimited upgrades. Luzioki was a little scared. If I get promoted again, will I be caught on the spot by Earth Online? After all, he really opened it? After thinking for a long time, he decided to give it a try. Try and die. Luzioki was really dumbfounded this time. He saw the glittering skill panel with his own eyes. After he clicked upward arrow, as if the card was stuck, the golden light stopped flashing, and the next moment the entire Son of Heaven's skill interface collapsed and disappeared without a trace. If it was just like this, Luzioki wouldn't be too sad. At most, she would be a little heartbroken about spending tens of thousands to buy skills. However, what collapsed along with his skills was his skill bar. This is really a big deal. Luzioki's heart was filled with despair. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 45. Skill bar, sword drawing, auto block, thunder attack, empty, 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 lock, 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 lock. 11/15. Seeing that she suddenly lost one skill bar, Luzioki felt regretful. He gave his hand that had just used the skill a hard blow. I'll make you owe it. After the beating, he suddenly felt something was wrong again. With the force he just used, if he hits his hand, not to mention how painful it is, at least he shouldn't feel anything at all. So he increased his intensity and slapped his right hand again. Snapped. The loud sound is particularly noticeable in the silent room. Luzioki's face was filled with joy. He raised his palm and hit his face again. Snapped. Crack. 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 After several slaps in a row, the noise finally alerted Lu Wanyi next door. She was in poor health and slept lightly. Xiaoqi, what are you doing? Her confused voice came through the wall. Nothing, just fighting mosquitoes. Luzioki suppressed her excitement and replied softly. Fight mosquitoes? Have there been mosquitoes in the past 2 days? Lu Wanyi muttered, without thinking much, and said casually, go to bed first, I'll buy some mosquito coils and come back tomorrow. Well, sister, go to bed quickly. Luzioki squeezed her thighs, with an excited look on her face. How could she still feel a little bit sleepy? After all this action, he finally became certain of one thing. Although his SSS skills disappeared due to his playing, the skill effects are still retained. He hit himself so hard, but the feeling returned from his body was like being gently touched by a lover's little hand. Joke. This is 10 times the defense power. Maybe there's more. Luzioki remembered that she had upgraded her skills. If the upgrade was successful. Skills beyond SSS rating? The skill bar didn't disappear, but was hidden? Or, has it really become a part of myself? Luzioki was thoughtful. In fact, he has always had reservations about this so-called talent or skill. After all, All of this was actually brought to him by the copy, rather than truly coming from his own power. The only power that truly belongs to him is the physical and mental energy he accumulates through practice day after day. But the strength exerted by these two alone is very limited. If the skill bar disappears one day, the talent is no longer there. Then wouldn't he have fallen to the bottom again and become a useless person with empty attributes but unable to exert any combat power? It's like a magical weapon in the game. As long as the equipment is removed, it will be completely useless. As the saying goes, wearing the divine costume, no one can defeat him. No one can defeat him if he takes off his divine uniform. This is the worry that has always been hidden in Luzaoki's heart. But now, he sees a new possibility. As long as you upgrade your skills beyond the SSS rating, can you get rid of the shackles of the skill bar and truly become a part of yourself? Luzaoki didn't know, this conjecture had yet to be verified by him. The most important thing for him now is to practice meditation as soon as possible. He wanted to try out the changes that this Super SSS rated skill brought to him in his cultivation. After trying to calm down, Luzaoki sat cross-legged on the bed. According to the meditation method taught in the school, start to empty your mind and adjust your breathing rhythm. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Luzaoki's spirit condensed in the sea of consciousness, like a puddle. In the past, practice was about trying to gather more water droplets and merge them into puddles. However, without the support of drugs to assist cultivation, it would take 2 to 3 meditations to condense a drop of water. After taking the medicine, patches of water vapor will form in this vast sea of consciousness. As long as the water vapor is captured, it can be easily converted into water droplets and poured into puddles. During this process, the mental intensity will naturally increase with the accumulation of puddles. But things are different now. The area of the puddle is more than 10 times larger than before. It can even be called a pond now. Luzaoki had just started practicing when a whirlwind appeared out of thin air, and the water vapor that was floating everywhere due to the consumption of auxiliary training supplies was directly sucked into it. The next second, a trickle of water was created out of thin air and flowed into the pond. Luzaoki opened her eyes with shock on her face. Is this what it feels like to be a genius? The auxiliary supplies that used to be enough to support a day of cultivation. As soon as it started, it was already over. The power of Super SSS skills is indeed not an exaggeration. Luzaoki gritted his teeth and took out a whole bottle of advanced spiritual liquid. Tons. Dry in one gulp. Practice with your eyes closed. Countless water vapor was generated in the sea of consciousness, and as soon as it appeared, it was caught in the whirlwind. A stream of water flowed into the pond, waves rippled on the surface of the pond, and the depth began to increase almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. Luzaoki had no time to pay attention to all this. This time he meditated for a longer time, and his head gradually became empty, as if he heard some strange sound ringing in his ears. It was like the sound of fairy music reaching his ears, deafening and awakening, which made Luzaoki feel like he was enlightened. He cleared the fog in front of his eyes and saw the infinitely beautiful scene. Marvelous! I seem to understand everything. Luzaoki was mesmerized and indulged in it. Time flies by like a fleeting moment, never to come back again. 4 hours, the limit time for meditation practice, passed by unknowingly. Luzaoki slowly opened his eyes. This time, his eyes were bright and full of energy, as if they contained hazy Taoist charms and hidden principles in the world. He mused. Epiphany. He entered a state that ordinary people could only seek for so easily. And it lasted for nearly 4 hours. If other adventurers knew about it, they would have to envy him to death. Of course, Luzaoki, who knew how to keep a low profile, would never let others know her secret. So he picked up a thumb-sized half-piece of eraser on the table with his backhand and flicked it with his fingers. Crack! In the dark room, near the corner of the inner wall, a little spider lying quietly on the spider web suddenly rolled and fell to the ground. The 8 claws struggled feebly and stopped moving. Snort. You know too much. Luzaoki was obviously very satisfied with his current hit, and the corners of his mouth turned up. The higher the hit, the better he controls himself and the better he controls the surrounding things. After these 4 hours of practice, the improvement of his spirit was secondary, and the main thing was the baptism of his whole being through enlightenment. He is now more aware of everything around him. This is not only reflected in the mastery of every minute joint of one's body, but also creates a wonderful feeling of being in control of everything from the inside out. Of course, for him now, this feeling is just an illusion. But with continuous strengthening, this ability has developed to the extreme, just like a character in mythology, incarnating in thousands of ways, reborn with a drop of blood, pinching one's fingers to tell fortunes, raising one's eyes to decide between life and death. Well, I couldn't care less. Luzaoki wiped the corners of her mouth. Sleep. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 46. Because she emptied her wallet, Luzaoki finally stopped. I had a wonderful day off by sneaking out and practicing. The next day, he came to school happily carrying his school bag. But the moment he stepped into the class gate, his happy expression froze. Due to his increasingly powerful perception, he grasped the general situation in the classroom in just an instant, and immediately set his sights on his good brother Chen Haoran. He originally wanted to share crossed out, Versailles, with him about his recent gains. It turned out that Chen Haoran had a bruised nose and swollen face, and his head was still wrapped in gauze. Luzaoki's face immediately darkened. He walked silently to Chen Haoran and said in the same tone as before, "Hey Haoran, during the past few days when I was away, you shouldn't have been beaten like this by your father because you couldn't do your homework, right?" When Chen Haoran saw Luzaoki coming over, he forced a smile. "Lao Chi, you're here. I haven't congratulated you for successfully passing the exam. I knew it would work if it was you." "That's not what you said at the beginning," Luzaoki teased. "Who wants to get me to open a restaurant? Why did you change your mind again now? I'm going to help you figure out a way out." "Just in case, right?" Chen Haoran smiled. "The bruised eye socket on the left side looks particularly ridiculous. He originally had small eyes, but now there is only a slit left." Luzaoki didn't smile. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly lost his relaxed expression and said, "Who did it?" Chen Haoran's heart skipped a beat and he quickly said, "It wasn't someone else who hit me, it was me who accidentally dropped it." "Did you fall?" Luzaoki pointed at his left eye. "Can it turn into a panda eye?" Chen Haoran pressed down Luzaoki's hand, lowered his head and said, "Old Chi, stop asking." Luzaoki said nothing and slowly put down his school bag. "After I came to this class, it wasn't long before I was found to have a great talent." When he learned the news, he instantly went from being someone who everyone looked up to being a joke to the entire school and even the entire province and city. What was originally a stunning performance has become a flash in the pan in the eyes of others. No one knew how much pressure I was under at that time, and no one cared about it. At this time, only Chen Haoran stood up to communicate with him, not caring about other people's opinions. So he became his friend. My only good friend in the past 3 years. At the moment, Chen Haoran is silent, cowardly, and humble. Compared with the talkative and bold fat man in his heart, he is completely different. Luzaoki felt an unknown fire burning in his heart, and he turned around and left the classroom. Xiao Yan frowned and corrected her homework in the office. Report. Luzaoki saw that there was no one else in the office, shouted report, and walked in. If you don't go to study in the morning, why are you here? Xiaoyan knew it was Luzaoki's voice as soon as she heard it, and asked without raising her head. Do you know about Chen Haoran's beating? This matter? Xiaoyan paused the pen in her hand and sighed. She knew that Luzaoki would never turn a blind eye to this matter. In the campus dispute, the party that hit the person has apologized and paid for Chen Haoran's medical expenses. The school's intention is to reduce big things to trivial matters. Sister Yan. He beat Chen Haoran like that, so let's leave it at that. Luzaoki couldn't believe that these words came out of Xiaoyan's mouth. If an apology works, then what else does the police need? Just talking about medical expenses, who will make up for Chen Haoran's psychological trauma? If justice cannot be asserted, what is the use of fairness? Even after 2 lifetimes, Luzaoki still couldn't understand this decision. Rather than being unable to understand, it is better to say that it is unforgivable. Xiaoyan looked at Luzaoki with a serious expression. You don't understand. It's actually the best choice to end this matter. Chen Haoran's family background is average. His parents are just ordinary restaurant owners, but the people he messed with have big backgrounds. Others may just say something casually, and Chen Haoran's restaurant will not be able to open. As his friend, even if you can help him once or twice, is it possible that you can help him for the rest of his life? This is the helplessness of ordinary people. No strength, no status. All the stability is just a fleeting moment, a passing cloud. Luzaoki gritted her teeth and said nothing. I advise you not to act out of anger, Xiaoyan advised cautiously. You are an adventurer now. But not your sister. Xiaoyan finally did not tell Luzaoki who Chen Haoran was injured. Because she knew that with Luzaoki's character, once she knew the culprit, the matter would be over. Luzaoki could understand Xiaoyan's approach, but he did not agree with her point of view. Before time travel, Luzaoki was deeply affected by school BL when she was studying, and she hated this pair deeply. Don't say it's the school or the teachers who don't know. Even if they know what is happening, they often turn a blind eye. Even if the matter gets serious, in the end, everyone can only fight 50 times and suppress the matter. Unexpectedly, after time travel, I stayed away from campus BL due to various reasons. But his friend became a victim of campus BL. Luzaoki said she couldn't accept it. In fact, what he wants is not necessarily to do something to the other party. But he couldn't agree with the school's conciliatory approach. This will only fuel the other party's arrogance and make them even more unscrupulous. The bell rang for the end of get out of class, and Wang Liang walked straight to Luzaoki, who was not interested in studying. Luzaoki, come out. He still spoke stiffly to Luzaoki. But the unruly look before was gone. Luzaoki stood up and followed him away. The two of them walked to the men's room. Wang Liang put his hands on the guardrail of the corridor and pretended to look at the scenery, but suddenly said, do you know about Chen Haoran being beaten? Did you hit him? Luzaoki narrowed his eyes, and invisible power emanated. Wang Liang was shocked. How is that possible? I'm not that kind of person. I know. Luzaoki's momentum dropped immediately and he waved his hand. Although you usually look at people through your nose and look arrogant, I know you are a good classmate and cannot do such a thing. Then I really thank you. Wang Liang wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, with a black line on his head. Don't interrupt, let's get down to business, Luzaoki said seriously. Who's interrupting me? Wang Liang was speechless, but he was too lazy to argue with Luzaoki. After fighting for more than 2 years, he had never taken advantage of Luzaoki in words. Not to mention real person PK. I couldn't beat it before, but in the future, I will never fight him again. He said directly, I know who did it. Even the whole process, I basically witnessed it. Global copy, My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 47. Jingle. Lu Xiaoqi and Wang Liang returned to the classroom with the bell. After the class, Lu Xiaoqi didn't focus on the class at all. Wang Liang had told him the entire incident. The origin of the process has something to do with him. After taking the adventurer assessment, Xiao Yan gave them all a holiday, and then gave the list of those who passed the assessment to the school. The next day, the school posted a list in the school to celebrate the good results achieved by Rongcheng Middle School in this adventurer assessment. Of the 60 or so people who participated, nearly 50 successfully passed. The pass rate is as high as 80%. The school publicized it vigorously and even organized a special motivation meeting to show off the brilliant results of the senior year to encourage the sophomore and freshman students to work hard. Of course, the starting point is good. But someone actually discovered on the list that Lu Xiaoqi also successfully passed. So some people were dissatisfied and began to spread negative sentiments. Learning well is not as good as lying down well. No matter how hard you work, it is better to rely on luck. Lu Xiaoqi has a great talent, and all the teachers and students in the school know it. He came from a poor family, as most people who knew him knew. So everyone couldn't figure out how such a person with a poor family and poor talent could pass the adventurer test. Not to mention that he had defeated Wang Liang, who had awakened his purple talent before. Anyone with a discerning eye knows that he has taken a trick, although everyone agrees on his superior practical ability. But this does not mean that he will be able to show higher combat power than others in the adventurer assessment. All in all, combat skills only account for a small part of an adventurer's strength. It mainly depends on skills, talents, and equipment. If a person's physical fitness is 10, then through skills, he can use his 10 points of perfect physical fitness to achieve 10 damage. But with the combination of talents, skills, and equipment, it is possible for him to achieve an output of 100 or even higher. In the adventurer assessment, as long as there are no serious mistakes in team coordination, it is impossible to fail to unleash your skills. The monsters are all jumping at your face, and with the cooperation of your teammates, there will be no chance of hitting the monsters with your skills. The reason why Wang Liang lost to Lu Xiaoqi was simply that Lu Xiaoqi's flexibility and grasp of rhythm far exceeded him. Can easily dodge Wang Liang's attacks and interrupt Wang Liang's skills. This problem does not exist in the adventurer assessment. For Wang Liang, when fighting Lu Xiaoqi, he could only use 5 to 10% of his strength at most. But in the adventurer assessment, with teamwork, he exerted at least 80% of his abilities, or even higher. That's why he can pass the assessment. And what about Lu Xiaoqi? Why should he? With his inferior gray talent? Or is it the toy wooden sword he wears on his waist every day? So there was a lot of talk about Lu Xiaoqi hugging his thigh and lying down to win, and it spread throughout the school in an instant. This was the trigger for Chen Haoran's beating. It happened on the afternoon of the day the list was posted. When Chen Haoran knew that Lu Xiaoqi had passed the assessment, he was even happier than he had passed it himself. He was very excited and decided to go to the notice board to take a closer look at how the school praised them, and then read it back to Lu Xiaoqi himself. As a result, I happened to bump into a few people talking loudly and slandering Lu Xiaoqi. No matter what he can do, it all depends on God's favor, pure luck, and maybe there are some ulterior deals. The words become harder and harder to listen to. Chen Haoran was unhappy. Chen Haoran believed 100% in his brothers. Not to mention the illusion of sword energy that seemed to be a hallucination that day. Just talking about Lu Xiaoqi's daily hard work and improvement, he also felt that Lu Xiaoqi must have passed the exam based on her strength. Chen Haoran had poor grades and didn't like studying. He couldn't understand what the teacher said. He didn't know how difficult the adventurer assessment was. Anyway, no matter how difficult it is, it has nothing to do with him. But he believed in Lu Xiaoqi from the bottom of his heart. Have you seen Liu Xiaoqi's efforts? Do you know how Liu Xiaoqi has lived in the past 2.5 years? Why do you say that to him? Chen Haoran and those guys started arguing. Coincidentally, those guys are all the devils in their own class. They are domineering in school, which makes the teacher tremble when he sees them. Where is he allowed to refute his opinion? What's more, the reason why they slandered Liu Xiaoqi was because of the jealousy in their hearts. They all have poor talent, so why can you, Liu Xiaoqi, be ranked first in your grade again? Why can you, Liu Xiaoqi, take the adventurer assessment? Why can you, Liu Xiaoqi, pass with your arms crossed? My dad is triple X. I don't even have a chance to go there if I hold it in my mouth like this. So when Chen Haoran was still preparing to fight, the school bully headed by him shouted directly. Hit him. After giving the order, several bullies surrounded Chen Haoran and beat him randomly. When others saw this, they did not dare to stop it and could only watch from a distance. Fortunately, he met Wang Liang passing by, and he saw at a glance that the one being beaten was Chen Haoran from his class. Even though he usually looked down on this gangster, how could a classmate in his own class have the right to be bullied by others? So he immediately shouted and stopped these people from doing their evil deeds. The school bully also had sharp eyes, and he immediately recognized Wang Liang and knew that he had passed the adventurer test, and that he also had purple talents and several skills. Not to be offended. So Kankan stopped, spat before leaving, and said to Chen Haoran. Aren't you very cool? Isn't that Liu Xiaoqi also very cool? If you have the ability, just ask him to come to me and see if I can cut him or not. In fact, Wang Liang didn't just happen to pass by here. He learned about the school's celebration of the results from someone else's mouth, so he rushed back specially. For no other reason than Wang Liang, he simply wanted to hear how others praised him. After all, due to his efforts, the passing rate of their class was 100%. Otherwise, why would he come all the way to school when he could rest at home? Especially for Chen Haoran to come to the rescue. It turned out that the limelight was once again overshadowed by Liu Xiaoqi. We walked around several times in a row, all discussing how Liu Xiaoqi passed the adventurer test. Listening to them questioning and slandering Liu Xiaoqi, Wang Liang was not moved at all, and even wanted to laugh a little. They didn't realize at all who the Liu Xiaoqi they were talking about was. A single player passed the adventurer assessment, breaking the historical points record and even changing the upper limit of points. Of course, he didn't expect that Chen Haoran, who usually works with Liu Xiaoqi, would be so brave, and actually confront the hard steel school bully. Fortunately, he comes here frequently enough, otherwise it wouldn't be as simple as a minor injury. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 48. This matter naturally became a big deal. Not only did the school know about it, but Chen's father and mother also knew about it. How could they sit still when their son was beaten like this at school? Father Chen, who is usually honest and simple, rarely got mad at the school and asked them to give an explanation. I have never argued with others in my life, and I have been doing my own business honestly. I also teach my son not to cause trouble. I don't want him to get ahead, I just want him to grow up in peace, to go home and inherit his own restaurant when he is wise, and for the family to be safe and happy. But even such a simple wish cannot be fulfilled. After being bandaged by the school doctor, he looked at Chen Haoran, who still had a bruised nose and swollen face, crying bitterly. Mother Chen burst into tears beside her. No matter how honest Father Chen is, he can't help but get angry. At the same time, the school authorities also arrested all the perpetrators. One look, wow! Awesome! They are all the leaders in their own class. Even the dean of students felt a little numb. Especially the carefree Su Jiahao at the head. His family even has connections in the city. Otherwise, with his behavior, how could he have grown to such a big size safely? Isn't it all thanks to having a good father who suppressed it all for him? This time was no exception. When the parents were notified by phone, they just said lightly, "I know, you can just do whatever you want. Don't even bother to come." Does the school dare to take action? Obviously it can't be done. So after all the hard talk, these school bullies finally reluctantly agreed to apologize and compensate. Looking at these bastards, he apologized to his son rather perfunctorily, turned around and left, showing no sincerity at all. Chen's father must not obey. But before he could get angry, the school leader pulled him outside the door, and the two of them muttered for a long time. After returning, Father Chen looked much more decadent than before. The whole person looked much older. He looked at his son for a long time, and finally whispered a few words. "Let's go home." Just 4 words. It seemed that all the strength of Chen's father was drained away, and the whole person seemed to have lost his backbone. Mother Chen fell silent, and the light in Chen Haoran's eyes disappeared. As a witness to the entire incident, Wang Liang was also nearby and witnessed the entire incident. He couldn't calm down either. But besides expressing sympathy for Chen Haoran, he could do nothing. His father, Wang Hu, also warned him not to cause trouble. "Don't get involved in this matter." Wang Liang found it difficult to understand this strange phenomenon. This is not the world he imagined. It's not what he wants. Wang Liang's heart also suffered an unprecedented impact. The originally innocent boy grew up a lot in an instant. At this time, he thought of someone. Lu Zioqi. What would he do if it were him? So after Lu Zioqi came back, Wang Liang told him about this. "What should I do?" Lu Zioqi was thinking about it too. Then he laughed. "What's there to hesitate about? Since the school cannot give a satisfactory answer to this matter, then I will use the student's own way to solve it. If you are timid about this matter, can you live up to Fatty Chen's trust in you? Are you worthy of your status as a time traveler? Is it worthy of the talent of Fengling Yueying?" After school, Lu Zioqi said lightly to Chen Haoran, who had not spoken a word all day. "Gather in the wasteland of the school. Bring your own melon seeds, fruit drinks, and benches." Chen Haoran knew what he was going to do as soon as he heard it. He was a little panicked, grabbed Lu Zioqi and said, forget it. This little injury is nothing to worry about." When he saw Lu Zioqi following Wang Liang out in the morning, he knew that he couldn't hide this matter. So he had been worrying about this all morning. It's not a question of whether Lu Zioqi can win a fight or not. The key is whether you can win or not. There is a problem. If you can't beat him, you'll be beaten as hard as him, with injuries all over your body. If you go back and let Sister Lu see it, you won't have to worry to death. After the fight, the forces behind those bastards came to look for trouble. Didn't they drag Lu Zioqi down for nothing? It's not worth it for him. He is just an ordinary person, and Lu Zioqi has become an adventurer. In the future, the two people are destined to be in two different worlds. How can he implicate him because of his own reasons? Lu Zioqi held down Chen Haoran's hand with bright eyes. "Fat Chen, do you still believe in the light?" Chen Haoran was stunned. "Fat Chen, this is a title I haven't heard of for a long time." At that time, Lu Zioqi had just become acquainted with him and was studying and practicing hard every day. He said to Lu Zioqi, "Lao Chi, we have a gray talent and a white talent, and we are from ordinary families, so we don't have to work so hard, right? It's impossible to get admitted as an adventurer anyway, so why work so hard?" Lu Zioqi turned around and said with a smile, "Fat Chen, do you believe in light?" Chen Haoran waved his hand indifferently. "If you can continue to be the first in your age, I will believe it." Later, Lu Zioqi slapped the transcript on the table, shrugged, and said easily, "Do you believe it now?" Chen Haoran's eyes suddenly turned red. He looked at Lu Zioqi, his lips moved a few times, and he whispered. Believe. I don't believe in light, I believe in you. Lu Zioqi. You don't know, that fat man gave me a plausible theory at that time, which made me laugh to death. I just slapped him and blinded him. He was completely stunned and didn't know what he was doing. Su Jiahao is still bragging about his heroic deeds. A few losers were happily helping him fill in the details. Those who failed to participate in this group fight were a little regretful and annoyed, as if they regretted that they had not caught up with the time. Everyone has different expressions, some are excited, some are proud, some are complacent. Only there is no emotion. That's regret. The surname is Su. A voice came from behind. Su Jiahao and his group turned around, were stunned for a moment, and then laughed. I thought it was someone, but it turned out to be Wang Liang. What? Do you want to avenge that damn fat man? As he spoke, Su Jiahao bent down, stretched out his face, slapped his face and said, "Come on, hit me." Originally, he was a little scared of Wang Liang, especially when he stood up and testified that he had beaten someone. But now he is not afraid anymore. Because his family has already greeted Wang Liang's father. In other words, Wang Liang has been manipulated by himself. Wang Liang stared at the ground in front of him, trying hard to control his emotions. It's not that I'm afraid, but I'm afraid that I'll take action on impulse. He took a breath and said in a deep voice, Lu Zioqi asked me to bring you a message. Tell you to bring more people with you. He will be waiting for you on the wasteland behind the playground. I'll give you an hour, if you don't come. There are consequences at your own risk. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 49. There is only one piece of wasteland behind the school playground. It's the area that I mentioned before that was going to be used to build the canteen, but construction has never started. Lu Zioqi is waiting here. He pulled out a stool from somewhere and sat down, crossing his legs with a nonchalant look on his face. Chen Haoran was looking at him from a distance behind him, looking worried. Lu Zioqi said that if she really had to take action later, she would not take care of him, so she asked him to stay away. Being so close, it would be difficult to deal with blood splattering on your face. Seeing that he was speaking seriously, Chen Haoran knew clearly that he was joking, but he still took it somewhat seriously. At this moment, he was extremely anxious and confused. On the one hand, he didn't want Lu Zioqi to really make this matter a big deal again. On the other hand, he secretly wanted Lu Zioqi to help him take revenge. Su Jiahao and his group of about 20 people walked toward the school playground in a mighty manner. Many good people followed behind secretly, intending to watch as a crowd pleaser. As the leader of Rongcheng Middle School, Su Jiahao reacted immediately when he heard this. Lu Zioqi is making a date with herself. How could he be so arrogant? I don't even want to ask who has the final say in Rongcheng Middle School. He quickly gathered his own people and rushed to the learning playground. He was still thinking about it as he walked. Since it was a fight within the school, it was naturally impossible for anyone from outside the school to participate. You are really doing nothing as a school security guard. If he was just from Rongcheng Middle School, then who wouldn't be allowed to give him 3 points of thin noodles? So there are only a few people from Lu Zioqi's side who can participate. He hurriedly called over 20 people, but it was enough. Su Jiahao was not so afraid of Lu Zioqi, he was more afraid that Wang Liang would intervene. It turned out that Wang Liang was holding his hands and didn't follow him at all. If Wang Liang doesn't care, no matter how good you, Lu Zioqi, are, how can you defeat all the 20 or so people like me? Even if there are 10 of you, Is it possible that all of them can fight against 2 or 3? Sujia didn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. Lu Zioqi is just a great talent, so what if he becomes an adventurer? Can you still press me to the ground and rub me? When he arrived at the scene, Sujia was also stunned. In such a large area, he saw only 2 people. Lu Zioqi was sitting on the bench with her back to them, her legs crossed and her head tilted for some reason. There was also a chubby figure hiding far away, with his head still wrapped in gauze. Sujia sneered, thinking how big the battle was. Is this the result? Lu Zioqi, you're the only one who wants to stand up for that damn fat guy, right? Damn fat man, don't hide, come out, let's talk more, we didn't get enough last time. That's right, wasn't that damn fat guy very cool last time? Why are you hiding so far this time? Sujia shouted from a distance, and the people next to him were also cheering for Sujia. Chen Haoran also heard the noise. His legs shook and he gritted his teeth but never took a step. Lu Zioqi had long heard the noisy sound behind him. At this moment, he stood up, stretched out, kicked the stool once, turned around and squinted at the person in front of him. The one at the front is Sujia. He dyed his hair yellow, had 2 piercings in his left ear, and wore earrings. A fashionable leather jacket paired with jeans is full of young and dangerous style. Lu Zioqi looked sideways and vertically, but she couldn't find any trace of a student on him. Are you Sujia? Lu Zioqi asked. It's your grandfather and me, Sujia said proudly. I heard you wanted to cut me. No, I brought it to your door on my own initiative. Lu Zioqi took off her clothes, bare her arms, revealing her upper body full of muscle outlines, and opened her hands slightly. Stop forcing me, Lai, aren't you going to hit me? Come. I'll just stand here and let you beat me. Sujia was stunned. Is there such a good thing? Is this person not a fool? Others were also stunned. Looking for someone to hit you? Isn't this a disease? The scene was silent for a while, only the howling of the wind could be heard. Why are you standing there? Come and beat me up. Lu Zioqi patted his chest, with the posture of Lao Tzu, with the green dragon on the left and the white tiger on the right, with the old ox on his waist and the dragon's head on his chest. If someone blocks a person, he will kill a Buddha. Sujia reacted quickly and spat on the ground. Asshole. Are you bluffing me? Brothers, come on. Give him a blow. As he said that, he took the lead and rushed forward. Others rushed forward. Although Sujia took the lead, he was smarter and slowed down, falling behind instead. The one at the front turned into a short man with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks, and a sinister smile on his face. He just kicked Lu Zioqi. Then he froze. Lu Zioqi remained motionless, as steady as Mount Tai. Lu Zioqi didn't fight back. Instead, she put her hands on her hips and taunted, "Hard work, haven't you eaten?" The man was furious. He was born short and was laughed at. What he hated most was being called weak. At this moment, being stabbed by Lu Zioqi, he immediately lost face and used all his strength to fly up and kick Lu Zioqi again. Lu Zioqi remained motionless, but the short man fell onto his back. At this time, others had already rushed in front of Lu Zioqi. A bunch of people used their fists and kicks to hit Lu Zioqi without any plan. Lu Zioqi was as solid as a rock, slightly protecting her lower body, leaving the rest of her body free for them to do as they wished. She was like a rock standing tall in a torrent, standing still despite the impact of the current. After the dungeon baptism, Lu Zioqi's physique had already exceeded the limit that ordinary people could achieve. The attacks of these people were as weak to him as the pushing of a child. What's more, there is an additional skill blessing with a super SSS rating. The defense increased more than 10 times. Standing here and being beaten by them, Lu Zioqi didn't even feel anything, and it wasn't as strong as the 2 slaps on her body. So he was being beaten while taunting him. Why are you fisting like a girl? Try harder. I'm afraid you're a little too weak. Eat more food to replenish your body. Look at you like that, you're as ugly as a ghost, and your fists are not as powerful as your face. Everyone was furious and used all their strength to hit Luzaoki. Get out of the way, let me do it. Sujihao lifted up the stool that Luzaoki had thrown aside and smashed it directly into Luzaoki's head. There was a click. The stool fell apart and was shattered on the floor. Luzaoki was unscathed, not even a scrape on her scalp. Sujihao was stunned, and so were the others. Is this guy a human? Luzaoki tilted her head and said calmly to Sujihao, you damaged public property, remember to pay for it later. One sentence frightened Sujihao and took several steps back. After coming back to his senses, Sujihao gritted his teeth and shouted, hit me hard. I'll be responsible if something goes wrong. Others fought harder. Chen Haoran saw this posture in the distance, suppressed the fear in his heart, and prepared to step forward to help. As a result, Luzaoki was beaten by so many people and she still had the nerve to turn her face and make a don't come over gesture to Chen Haoran. He shook his head at Chen Haoran and mouthed silently. Just stay there and watch. Chen Haoran was also stunned for a moment. I don't know if I should take back the foot I stepped out. Like him, the people eating melon from a distance were also shocked by this scene. More than 20 people surrounded Luzaoki and beat him. As a result, Luzaoki. Haven't you eaten? Work harder. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 50. This scene shocked everyone at the scene, and some people who had long been dissatisfied with Sujiahao's domineering behavior took advantage of this moment to sneak away and prepare to go to the teacher to file a complaint. In fact, to be honest, these guys are very experienced in group fights. The attack was ruthless. He is best at using joints such as hand crutches and knees to attack other people's waist, abdomen, lower body, neck and other key parts. Once these places are hit, although it may not be fatal, it can still make people unable to recover for a long time. As a result, today by chance, I met a monster like Luzaoki. He didn't even make a move. He simply protected his little chi and face, and let them attack the rest of his body. As a result, they were unable to break through even the weakest vital points of the human body. When he got angry, he even tried to trip Luzaoki to the ground. I tried pulling my hair, strangling my neck, and bending my feet. There was no place to move, Luzaoki just stood there, motionless. Instead, the one who pulled his hair was slapped away by Luzaoki. He only said lightly, blood can be shed, heads can be cut off, and hair can't be messed up. You don't even understand this, how can you get away with it? In such a high-intensity battle, how long can these gangster-level characters last? After only 10 minutes, I was breathing heavily and couldn't get up. On the contrary, their leader, Sujiahao, had a gloomy expression on his face, but his physical strength was not used up much. Luzaoki stood there and waited for a while, but no one came up to attack him again. Instead, she stared at him like a monster. He patted his pants that were stained by everyone and said casually, "What? This won't work. Can't fight anymore. Isn't it quite capable of fighting? When you come out to hang out these days, just having power and background is useless. Can you fight? Can you beat me?" Luzaoki looked around, her eyes fixed on Sujiahao's face. "We've fought enough, right? Now it's my turn, right?" As he said that, he slowly walked towards Sujiahao. Sujiahao's expression changed and he screamed, "Stop him quickly! Hurry!" But Luzaoki exuded an astonishing aura, and everyone was frightened by it, and they didn't dare to move at all. Even Sujihao himself didn't have the courage to turn around and run away. He could only stand there, his feet trembling, and he said frantically, "Don't come over. Do you know who my dad is? Try touching me. I want you." Without saying anything, Lu Zioki slapped him on the face. Sujiaho's 2 teeth flew out instantly. The whole person was beaten so hard that he bent over. Then Lu Zioki struck Sujiahao on the back, knocking him down instantly. Lu Zioki looked at Sujiahao, who was struggling crazily under his feet and whimpering incoherently, and asked gently, "Are you convinced?" There was dead silence around, and no one dared to answer. Sujiahao was obviously unconvinced and he was still struggling desperately. When several people saw this, they gritted their teeth and were about to rush to rescue him, but Lu Zioki looked at him and scared everyone back several steps. After being baptized by the copy, Lu Zioki's soul power, which was already far superior to others, became even more unfathomable. The sense of oppression revealed in his eyes almost solidified, and everyone had no choice but to avoid its sharp edge. Lu Zioki put down her legs, and Sujiahao immediately got up from the ground. As a result, Lu Zioki immediately stepped on his back again. Sujiaho's face turned red, and his body seemed to be carrying an invisible mountain, being pressed down bit by bit until it was pressed against the ground. After repeating this several times, Sujiahao finally stopped moving. He was lying on the ground with his limbs spread out like a dead fish, breathing heavily, with a trace of confusion in his eyes. He couldn't figure out why this Lu Zioki could be so strong. Why is he not afraid of the forces behind him at all? You should be convinced now, right? Lu Zioki said the harshest words in the gentlest tone, and her voice was clear and spread throughout the audience. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, all those who participated in the beating of Chen Haoran will go to the school podium and shout that Chen Haoran is sorry 100 times. If anyone misses it once, I will have a private talk with them. If anyone dares not to come, then I will keep talking to him until he drops out of school. As he said this, Lu Zioki glanced at the people who were full of resentment and dared not speak out, and said slowly, "Everyone here must know me. Anyone who wants to cause trouble for me is welcome at any time. But if you don't follow martial ethics and use dirty tricks behind the scenes to deal with my friends or even my family." At this point, a short sword suddenly appeared in his hand. This time there was not even a process of accumulating energy. An unrivaled sword energy swept out. In the stunned eyes of everyone, it suddenly bombarded the ruins of the wasteland. Boom! The sound was like a divine thunder coming to the world, deafening, almost alarming half of the school. Smoke stirred up and dust flew. Amidst such a huge noise, the high-rise earth bag on the wasteland was cut off at the middle, and slowly separated and slid down. "It's like this," Lu Zioki said calmly. Everyone's faces were pale, and their eyes looked at him as if they were looking at a monster, full of fear. Even surprise and doubt no longer existed, and his mind was completely blank. Lu Zioki retracted her dagger, knelt down and patted Sujiaho's face, who was so frightened that he froze on the spot. "No matter who comes to trouble my friends or family in the future, the first person I look for must be you. Don't say you didn't predict what you said." After finishing speaking, Lu Zioki suddenly frowned and smelled an unpleasant smell. Looking down, he discovered that there was a wet mark spreading under Sujiaho's body. He took 2 steps back in disgust and waved his hand. "Get out of here." As if they had received an amnesty, everyone rolled and crawled towards the playground. "You two wait." Lu Zioki pointed at the last 2 people, the one who pulled his hair out before and the short one who did it first. The 2 of them trembled and almost knelt down in front of Lu Zioki on the spot. "Take this guy down." Lu Zioki pointed at Sujiahao, who couldn't get up, pinched his nose and said in disgust. The 2 of them breathed a sigh of relief, quickly picked up Sujiahao, and dragged him away without any hesitation. After the dust settled, Lu Zioqi turned to look at Chen Haoran, who was still stunned, and slowly walked over. Are you relieved? Chen Haoran's whole body was shaking with excitement, and his eyes were red. Did you tell me that the sword energy I saw last time was an illusion? I said how could it be fake? But that's not important anymore. Lao Chi. Chen Haoran said loudly. I don't want to learn cooking anymore, I want to become stronger. I want to be like you and not be bullied. Lu Zioqi looked at Chen Haoran and suddenly laughed. Wouldn't it be better if you figured it out earlier? It's not too late, come on. Lu Zioqi gave Chen Haoran a thumbs up. Chen Haoran nodded firmly, his squinting panda eyes igniting with fierce flames. The two of them sneaked away while avoiding the teachers who came to check on the situation.